It's time for Team Venom to cross the line.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talking TNA. On this week's episode, we've got a special guest, and for that exact reason, we're not really going to be talking much between the pair of us, are we, Connor?
We're not. We'll talk for a little bit about said guest.
Yes.
And then smoothly transition over.
Okay. So tonight's special guest is the walking weapon, Josh Alexander, one half of not quite Team Canada. I'm not sure if it's being classed as Team Canada anymore. The team that he's teaming with Eric Young, and occasionally accompanied by Scott D'Amore. He was also in the North with Ethan Page. He's a two-time TNA champion and a former X Division champion.
And he was the 9th Triple Crown champion.
Nice, yeah.
Enjoy.
So this is it. That's our guest. We've got Josh Alexander on. That's it. Here he is. Enjoy. Firstly, we saw you in Coventry 2 nights in a row. Me and my family came to the shows. We saw the awesome tag match that you had on the first night and the ridiculously good match you had with Chris Ridgway the following evening as a result of Alex Shelley dropping out last minute. For us in attendance, it was awesome to see because obviously with Shelley dropping out due to the injury, and understandably so, it shows a lot of versatility on your side of things, being able to adapt to Ridgway immediately at the drop of a hat with no preparation. Did you get much of a say in picking that opponent, or how did that match come about?
We knew Shelley had dropped out, and there was the cards shuffled around, and whichever way it needed to. I needed an opponent, obviously. And I think it was just like I never really have a say in these things. Like if I want to offer a name, I can. I just usually stay out of it because I really trust everybody that's a part of management and that puts together the show. And this specifically was Scott D'Amore. You know, he was the one there live in Coventry, you know, handling all the business. And I trust him above pretty much anybody in this entire business of crazy business of pro wrestling. So he came up to me as I got to the show, probably 2 hours before doors open. And he was like, I think we're going to put you with Chris Ridgway. You're familiar with him. I was like, oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I had come to England in 2016, and he was on some shows that I was on, and I've obviously seen him and Noah throughout the past few years. So I was very familiar. I knew how good he was, and I was just, quite frankly, I was excited to step foot in the ring with him for the first time. So,
Nah, fair enough. And as a fan, obviously, we went for the both nights and we were looking forward to seeing the Shelley match, but we weren't disappointed because Ridgway's fantastic anyway. And obviously, that ties into what I was going to mention to you as well. You've had tremendous matches with Ridgway, with Ospreay, and virtually everyone else on the TNA roster. And it seems to be one of those things where even though you're not the world champion, you seem to be the measuring stick of the company at the moment, which is awesome. How does it feel that the company's put so much faith in you?
I mean, it feels great. It's all I could ever ask for, to be honest. Like, I remember when I first went singles, it was about just over 3 years ago now. Somebody had asked me, a writer in the company, he was just like, what would you do with you? And I was just like, just give me the ball and see if I drop it. Like, put me out there, let me wrestle. And I guarantee if you just let me have these matches because like I've been doing it on the independents forever. If you just put me out there and let me have like my kind of matches where I'm just going to work my ass off and try to have the best match on the show every single time, I'm naturally going to get over with that. And then, you know, we can figure out the character thing after. And that's pretty much what's happened. And to this day, you know, like you said, I'm called the standard bearer by Tom Hannafan. Will Ospreay said I needed to be a world beater to beat him. And now that I've defeated him, I guess I'm a world beater. So for as long as I can remember since I've been here, Fuji, Vikingo, the list goes on. If you're from another company and you're stepping foot in Impact or now TNA Wrestling, you got to go through me. So I've kind of been the gatekeeper here as well.
No, nice. Obviously, I mentioned the Ospreay match, which also took place on the UK tour. How did you find the UK this time around? Because as you say, you've been over before a few times.
Oh, every time I'm there, the UK fans are awesome. I don't know what it is. Like I've discussed it with some other people. I think it might be like because of football out there, like the chants, everyone, like everybody that pays a ticket to see a show and you can get involved in the show, like they get involved, man. It's completely different audience. Like you go to Japan, you'll hear claps and you'll hear the oh, but like they're very quiet. You go throughout the United States to different shows, different markets have different reactions. You go to Chicago, they're going crazy. You go to New York, they're going crazy. But you go somewhere, West Coast, they might not react the same way. They're still reacting, but it's just a different vibe that you get. And over in the UK, man, like there wasn't a person in that locker room that wasn't pleasantly surprised by the reception from the crowd and how into the matches they got, the chants they started and stuff like that. It just makes it more fun for us.
No, fair enough. One of the biggest things of news that's happened in recent weeks was in another company, but also very huge for TNA, in that Jordynne Grace was in the Royal Rumble for WWE this weekend just gone. What were your thoughts on that? And is there anything that you can disclose if there's been any talks about any other crossovers or anything like that?
First, I was so happy to see her show up and then see how well she did in the Rumble. Like I've known Jordynne Grace is a star for a very long time. She's one of my best friends in all of TNA, in this locker room, has been for years. But like she's just such a good person and such a hard worker and loves wrestling. And you can see it with every match she has. Like same thing with me. Like there's this weird like passion for this and this love for this where you will sacrifice and risk yourself every time to make sure that the fans get their money's worth and they're reacting and see the very best match possible. And that's been Jordynne Grace. And she went out there in the Royal Rumble and she showed up and she showed out, man. I'm not gonna lie. I had developed a good working relationship with Naomi Trinity when she was in TNA, and to see them get in the ring and kind of bridge that gap from the recent feud over into the Rumble and see the reception and the roar from the crowd they got from near 50,000 fans, I got goosebumps. I had tears welling up in my eyes for happiness for both of them. And like I said, Jordynne Grace is a star, and now the world knows it. It's just amazing to see. And as for the second part of your question, I have no idea. I have been tagged in thousands of tweets wanting to see me wrestle Chad Gable and Gunther. So, if they want to come to TNA, like I said, I am the gatekeeper here. So if they want to step through the door, I'll be waiting on the other side.
Nice. One of the things I'd like to ask you about is obviously you mentioned about when you went singles and had the conversation with the office of just putting you out there. Prior to going single, your tag team, the North, was the longest reigning tag team champions of all time in all of the 20-year history of TNA. And then you've ended up being both the shortest reigning TNA champion and the longest reigning TNA champion. Did you ever suspect that they were going to give you those sorts of accolades?
No, absolutely not. Like when I started in TNA just about 5 years ago, like we won the tag team championships within, I think it was the third month I was there. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And you're just like, it's just a constant waiting game of being like, oh, when are we going to drop them? Is it going to be next show, next pay-per-view? What's going to happen? It just never happened. But I think that was a testament to just how good we were as a tag team. In that company, we kept things interesting with whoever we're in the ring with, whether it be the Rascals or, LAX or any other tag team. And then as for the TNA World Championship, that was never on my radar, especially when I went singles and I had that conversation with the office. I thought maybe, I can get an X Division run, which would be a dream come true for the 15-year-old kid in me. But then, things just snowball, man. You catch momentum off a few matches, you get noticed. And, the office starts to realize that you're consistent, dependable, which I think are the two biggest qualities you can have as a pro wrestler. If they can put you out there with anyone on a moment's notice and you're always going to do your job, like to the best of your ability and do it correctly, like that's something that's invaluable. And luckily, like I had, enough of a head on my shoulders to know that was the thing I should do at all times. So I just always tried to do my job the best I possibly could, and it's just snowballed to where we are today. Longest reigning TNA World Champion, and well, two-time TNA World Champion,
Yeah.
I guess, if you count the short reign, and you know, the current world leader for TNA.
Yeah. I mean, your first win ties into what you were saying about the people coming through the door and whatnot, because that was obviously AEW's Christian Cage at the time that he took on, which was an absolutely fantastic match. I know TNA with the relaunch from Impact to TNA also had the massive overhaul on the TNA Plus app, which is now hosted by Endeavor and whatnot, and has a wealth of TNA history and content on there. What matches would you recommend for fans to check out of yours on there?
Of mine, ooh, there's some gems on there. When we first got crowds back, it was a smaller show. We had very small crowds when we first came out of COVID. I wrestled, I believe it was Victory Road, and I wrestled Jake something. And that is one of my favorite singles matches, my favorite X Division defenses, you know, I've ever had. I think the world of Jake something. I have to start right there. I think he's talented. I think he looks like, if you were to close your eyes and draw a pro wrestler, you would probably draw something close to what Jake something looks like. Like, he is just a mammoth of a man and a super athlete and a great guy, and he works hard and he's really good. And at the time, he didn't have a lot of eyes on him in Impact, and we just got this title defense, and I was like, we're going to steal the show and show the world how good you are, dude. And I think we went out there and we did that night, and it was just something that kind of slipped through the radar because it was the COVID time. And I think if people go back and watch that, they'll be pleasantly surprised with both the match and Jake something. Like, I think that is something that will highlight him and show everything he can do. And I have so many favorites that I've had. Obviously, the TJP Iron Man, the Mike Bailey near 60-minute match is pretty high up there. But if I was going to pick a random one, put me on the spot, man. Me and Ishii, that one, you know, that one was a bucket list thing for me. Ishii, I've been a huge fan of him for years. I've watched him in New Japan as a fan, as a pro wrestler, just learning, trying to study tape and stuff like that, and to be able to step foot in there with them in a main event and go, you know, 30 plus minutes. That was something that, you know, I'll never forget. And I think we put on a hell of a match as well.
Nice. Obviously, we had a conversation with Simon and Lauren a few weeks back on one of our podcasts, and they were saying that no one knew in the company, apart from the people in the video, of the TNA rebrand, which obviously it was a load of the TNA originals and then yourself, and they heavily implied that it was that out of the guys that weren't there for the TNA days, you're the guy that embodies the spirit of the TNA. That's how they did the video package. How did that all come about?
I was actually not supposed to be there. I was supposed to be getting my visa for Japan, which means I have to give up my passport and can't travel at that time. And I was told that I should really not do that, and I should be in Nashville. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And I got slid a piece of paper, and it was just a non-disclosure agreement. And he was like, if you sign that, I'll tell you. And I was just like, you know, the curiosity was just going crazy because this must be a big deal. So I signed the NDA, and the second I put the pen down, you know, Scott laid it all out for me, and I was just like, oh yeah, 100%. Like, I will do my visa later, even though, you know, that barely came in time for me to go to New Japan for the very first time. But yeah, it was that. We finished up some shows in Memphis. We drove to Nashville. Some people flew. We met up there. We filmed this thing in secret. I didn't tell my wife, you know, because that NDA paper, it was just all a secret until after the main event of Bound for Glory. And then that video dropped. And, you know, me and Jordynne Grace were kind of picked as the figureheads for the knockouts in the men's roster, to be, you know, the new generation carrying it forward from, you know, the past generation that was the part of the original TNA, like you said. And I know that, you know, we were both honored to be there, be trusted with that, you know, all this other stuff. And yeah, it was a history making thing that I'll never forget.
Awesome. Well, I'll wrap this up with one last question. Obviously, we've talked about some of the highlights that you've had over the last few years. Is there anyone on the Impact roster that you want to face this year now that TNA roster? Is there anyone on the TNA roster that you're looking forward to facing later this year or anything like that?
Well, I actually got asked this question recently, and the first name that popped into my head was Leon Slater, someone who was recently signed from the UK. I saw him on a show I did for Sovereign Pro last February, and I was blown away with how good he was. And he came to the back, and I was just chatting with him. I was like, "How old are you?" And I can't remember, 18 or 19 or something like that, like ludicrously young. And my eyes bulged out of my head because when I was 18, I was just learning to wrestle. When I was 19, I certainly wasn't anywhere near that good. And I just see so much potential in him. It's all there. Like, sure, he's young. He's still got to find himself, find his character, figure out all those little things. But the in-ring product, the talent is all there. So I would love to step foot in the ring with Leon Slater at some point this year.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been really good chatting to you.